All right, welcome back to the shop. This is actually our first live video from the new shop, and we're full. I've been here a couple weeks. Phone doesn't stop ringing. Parking lot's full. Trying to find some help. Good luck. Anyways, bit of a mess. Long story. Anyways, 56 Pontiac 316. Pretty cool. Really cool, actually. Kind of like a small block Chevy, but different. And it's got pressed in studs. Thing came in with a tick, and we were going through housekeeping, do a leak down and stuff. Valve covers were leaking. Stamped valve covers, making them tighter doesn't make them leak less. Usually it makes them leak more. So, and we were straightening out the valve covers and stuff. But the engine tick, we pulled the left side valve cover, driver side valve cover, and listening to the motor, you'd swear it was in the right side. But that's why, again, you gotta be thorough. You can't use, you can use your gut, but you gotta be thorough. You gotta look at stuff, and don't convince yourself that what you're hearing is one thing. Sound echoes and bounces around. You got dual plane manifold, that'll do weird things. This is a really cool engine though, right? 1956. Look at that. Like that's an air gap manifold. Pretty cool, eh? Pretty cutting edge. So anyways, we got the driver's side valve cover off. It's a bit of a mess, but we're opened up, and look what we have here. Uh-oh. Press in stud. Get some trash in there. Right. We have a broken rocker stud, and that is on an intake port. So you're going to get, that's what we got. We got to get that sucker out. We don't want to pull the head, and we don't want this to be a bigger project than it already is. This guy's on a limited budget. Look at, nobody's got any money to spend anymore. Inflation and whatnot. We got to get this guy back on the road for a reasonable amount of money in a reasonable time. I can already tell you, finding these studs is going to be tricky, because they're not just like a Chevy pressed in stud out of your old 305. These are going to take some doing. So here we go. I'm going to show you how we're going to get this out. So you can see it's broke off. There's actually a bit of a shoulder there, which is a weak spot right at the base of the threads. And what else you're going to find that's really cool is these are hollow, and they've got a little oiler hole in them, and we'll show you that here when we get it apart, if we get it apart in one piece. So we got to have a plan. Here is the plan. What we got here is our plan. We got a couple 3/8 nuts. We got a 1/2 inch nut. We got a 3/8 standard die that isn't engraved, so it took like, I get my glasses and a light to figure out what one I had. We're gonna we're gonna thread that stud a little bit more to give us something to bite on, and we'll go from there. So you're going to start that on there. Obviously we can't spin it with the tap driver, so we're going to take a 1-inch socket. We're going to put that on there. Pull that push rod out. And we're going to drive that die till it starts with the socket, and then we're going to get on there with a ratchet. Now obviously we're working inside an engine here. I'm going to go in with my little sucky outer thing in a little bit and try to get all the oil and stuff out of here. Note our drain backs are up over here. You can't really see very well. The top of the cylinder head, and up here by this head bolt. So we don't have to worry too much about trash getting down into the engine, as long as it stays up here and we get it all before we finish up. But something, again, like I said, these studs are actually used to oil the rocker arms. You still have oil through the push rod, but oil through the stud to oil the ball on the rocker arm. So as I said, I'm just going around with a magnet, getting as much of the big stuff as I can for now, and we'll get back at that here in a few minutes. We got that stud threaded, so we got something to get a hold of. cut 3/8 threads on that. I'm going to drop a 1/2 inch nut on there just to work as a spacer, and a couple washers. And let's see if we can get a bite on it. And there goes that nut. Back in a second. So we've got her moving. We've moved it about 1/4 inch, but you can see our threads are not the greatest. Again, it's not the exact nominal size for tapping 3/8 threads, so we're going to keep stacking in a couple washers so we're working in the sweet spot of the threads. And every time that I have this apart to add washers, I'm going ahead and I'm using a brand new nut, so I'm kind of hoping that most of the wear in my threads are in the nut. So trying to give this thing every chance at a success as possible. So we're about halfway out and we have a problem. The problem is that these threads are too far buggered. Every time we get a bite on them, eventually they just strip out the nut. But we have some virgin material down here we can work with. Sorry that the camera won't focus. So we're going to run the die back down there, and we're going to cut some more threads and see if we can bite down there. Now we are making headway. 1 washer's worth at a time. Now this thing's pretty buggered up, but if it goes, we got her. So now, since the last time we tapped, we've moved probably another 1/4 inch. So we are well on our way to being where we want to be. It just requires staying patient and working it. So certainly not our finest work. Would you focus, please? But this is what's left of the stud that came out, and we got her right out. Come on. You can see, sorry it won't focus, the stud is hollow and it's got a little wee hole here right below where the threads would originally start, and that is to lubricate the ball in the rocker. Really slick, really cool, and it worked because like all the valve train looks great on this. Just it broke studs. There was a weak spot right where the threads ended. So, but there you go, staying on it, just taking your time, not getting upset, staying patient, work the problem. She's out. Now what I got to do is find 2 of these, because there's 2 broken studs on this motor. And if we can find 2 of these somewhere in a coffee can somewhere, there's a whole bunch of these. Just got to find them. And we can get this thing back together, send her down the road. Thanks for watching, Fully Tech Mechanical. Okay, so here is what we've come up with. This is a standard small block Chevy shitty pressed in stud. It is very, very, very similar in dimensions to the Pontiac one, except that it has a 3/8 fine thread as opposed to 5/16 fine thread. So what we did is we took one of these, its nominal or its measured dimension is exactly the same as the Pontiac one, and I said, okay, I have a couple studs coming, but they could take weeks to get here. So let's see if we can get this thing on the road, at least for the time being, and then we'll have the parts. We'll give them to the customer. If it fails again, we'll put the genuine Pontiac stuff in, but I bet you this is probably a better solution. So here's what we did. We took a standard Chevy stud, put it on the lathe, drilled down the center, and then drilled a little hole for the oiler. And we are going to press this guy in with the swing press, and we're going to see if we can make it work. Now here's the stock Chevy rocker arm nut. Every shop worth its salt should have thousands of these things kicking around in coffee cans or something somewhere. We're going to thread this guy on. And there we go. Time for the valve covers. There you go. Cleaned up the valve covers, gave them a coat of paint, straightened them out so they don't leak as much. And she's just running smooth as glass now. So check that out. That is just an example of how, with this older stuff, limited parts availability, everything, you got to be creative. You got to think outside of the box, and you got to stick with it. But again, this job could have very easily turned into a 100-hour engine out. Heads off, tapping and threading and doing all kinds of stuff, and for the time being it's on the road. I can't guarantee that it won't break another stud or pull the studs out or whatever, but for a cruiser that's going in parades and such, it's getting them back on the road on the budget that he had. So there you go. Stick with the problem, work through it, take your time. There's always a solution. Thanks for watching.